Hey, I'm Bob Dillner, and this is The Skinny.
From the Fatheads Eyewear Studios in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny, brought to you by Toyota, Rhino Classifieds, General Tire, and Dream Giveaway. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Toyota. Welcome to The Skinny. Time to have another great show here, and joining back at the desk and joining me back at the desk is Rico Elmore. It's been a long time. I'm scared, man. I mean, you got me jittery over here.
I mean, you've taken my name off the sign. Okay. We're no longer wearing headsets, so I can't get any cues on anything. So, yeah, I guess I'm happy to be back.
Yeah,
so.
It's been a couple of months. You've been running around the country with NHRA and gone for many days at a time, and we had some dude named Michael filling in for you.
Yeah, what a clown. Anyhow.
He's actually running the board today, so you got to be careful what you say about him. He'll pot you right down. We won't hear a word
levels
you say.
will be sorted out quick.
We have a great colleague of mine, good friend of mine as well, that will join us on the show. Mr. Bob Dilner has been in the business for a long, long time and has reached the pinnacle, really, of motorsports racing inside of this country, excluding F1, if you will. Has seen the behind-the-scenes stuff, has been part of Speed 51, and worked very closely with drivers and how to promote them and their careers all along the way. Started off in Long Island, Huntington, Long Island, which I owned a trucking company, a small trucking company in New Jersey, and I used to pick up and deliver cars in the 5 boroughs in Long Island, so I know exactly where Huntington is, just a little bit short of Comac, about the middle of the island, maybe a little bit short of the middle of the island, but beautiful place out there. I mean, it really is. I know New York can get beat up as kind of a bad rap from time to time, but and certainly the end of the island, boy, you better have some scratch if you're going to play ball out there.
Oh, yeah. But, you know, it was really cool kind of growing up on Long Island because not only was it beautiful and you're close to the water and stuff, but in the racing world, because I was one of those kids that got picked on all the time for being the racing guy. Hey, are you going to the Yankees game? No. What are you doing? I'm going out to Islip Speedway or Riverhead Raceway or whatever. What's that?
Yeah.
That's right. So, I mean, you know, my dad was a race car driver, and, you know, he taught us, listen, you know, if you get hit, whether it's on the racetrack or off the racetrack, make sure you hit them back twice as hard. Okay, so that's how we grew up. The Dillners grew up on Long Island. We were known as the Fighting Dillners, you know, from the racetracks right to the ball fields.
Wow.
So how much difference in age is your brother? That's awesome, by the way.
He's 6 years difference, and I love it because, you know, he gets pissed off all the time because people say, are you older or is he older? And I'm like, yes, because I'm 6 years older than he is. And he says he's the Pontiac Dilner. You know, wider is better, is according to him.
All right.
I understand. I'm with you on that.
I love that. Yeah, I can relate.
You
totally.
know, we grew up, you know, just our dad was a race car driver, figure 8 race car driver.
Oh, wow.
So you wonder how my brother and I wound up the way we are. He got hit in the X1 too many times. You know, he quit early on, and we just went to the racetrack, and he'd have one of those orange seat back chairs you'd put into the grandstand. He'd tie his belt around me, give me his old steering wheel from his figure 8, and I would just pretend I was my favorite race car driver on the racetrack.
Oh, that's awesome.
We went Friday, Saturday, Sunday, most weekends, and just went to different racetracks throughout the Northeast.
So who, anybody of name that came from out there, any of the tracks that you...
Well, I mean, you know, it depends on how you look at it. You know, for me, you know, you take a look at my idols growing up, which was like Charlie Drzombeck, you know, Chargin' Charlie, one of the baddest modified drivers ever.
Okay.
You know, but the people that, you know, would relate to these days is like a Steve Park.
Okay,
you know,
sure.
He won some cup races. Greg Sachs won the big cup race there at Daytona. So those are the guys, you know, but the Mike Ewanitskos and the Fred Harbacks and the Georgie Brunholzl, those sort of people.
So
who
Oswego was quite north, further north of you guys.
That's another
right?
state.
Okay.
So, you know, that's up here. And Long Island, you know, honestly, Long Island's bigger than Rhode Island.
Right.
We always said we could have been our own state. And that New York just adopted us because we acted way different than anybody else in the state.
My buddy lives in Lido Beach, closer towards Brooklyn or back that direction. And the first time I ever went out there, I was amazed. I was absolutely amazed. I was like, you're definitely not in New York City. You're definitely, and like, as you guys both mentioned, the further you go north, the deeper your pockets better be, because it's you get up to the Hamptons, it is quite the difference. So.
Yeah. I grew up, in the TV industry. When I made that transition, I was in news. So I was this news guy during the week, and then the weekend I created my own company and did these racing shows for the network. And it's funny because, you realize some of the same people you covered during the week were the same people that watched your show and loved it, So I don't know if you guys remember, back in the day, Joey Buttafuoco. Okay?
Sure.
Obviously, him, Mary Jo, Amy Fisher, that whole deal. We cover that because I was working in the news business right from the get-go. And then Joey gets out of jail, the whole deal. Remember him with the cuffs, raising his hands. But then he shows up at Riverhead Raceway, and we had a show called Long Island Trackside on News 12. And, we'd be like, oh, there's Joey. We covered him during the week, interviewed him and all that. And we'd try to walk the other way, and he'd be like, hey, Long Island Trackside. We're like, who's he talking to?
Were you still on the island when they had the shooting on the train, or had you already
Colin
left?
Ferguson. I actually covered that as a producer. So, so many different instances. That's kind of like flashbacks for me, covering that, being in the control room and not knowing what's going on, and sending live crews and finding out bits of information and not giving folks the wrong information. And that's really where my background came from. Even while I was in the Cup Series, I learned a lot from that news side of the thing to be able to know what to say and what not to. When Kyle Larson had that truck and, or his Xfinity car, I can't remember which one it was back then, and part of it went into the grandstands at Daytona. We were on the air for, I think it was 12 straight hours, giving people updates and saying what we could. We knew some more, but you can't give that information out. So that news background for me certainly helped me out a lot, for fun purposes, but also for my career moving forward.
Wouldn't it be amazing if people still did that?
Yeah. the news media has changed so much.
What if they actually
pisses
cared
me
about
off, honestly.
telling the truth?
That's what I was talking about.
That would be
exactly
first and foremost. Just tell the truth, and then we'll figure out what you can and can't say.
That's right.
Yeah.
So did you ever drive a race car? Were you ever a driver?
Yeah, actually, we had no money growing up, so we were just in the grandstands. But as I started to move along with my career, obviously you start making some money, especially when you're in NASCAR. I mean, you make good money, or at least you did back then. A lot of things are changing right now. But, I was able to drive other people's race cars, my own race cars, everything from street stocks to karts to modifieds to late models and everything in between, dirt and pavement. And I was a guy that grew up around pavement racing, being from Long Island, but every summer we would venture out and go to dirt tracks. So, man, I started out on pavement with some of the driving that I did, and then finally moved over to dirt and loved dirt so much better. I just never had, we had a race shop one time. I had 12 cars in the shop. We were like 30,000 square feet, full-time people, just stupid when you were making the big bucks. I wish I had some of that money back, honestly.
Right.
Because
I can relate to all that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Stout can too.
The memories are good. They're cool. I mean, listen, I remember my brother, you mentioned my brother with Lost Speedways and Dan Jr., again, the Fighting Dillners. We brought that down from New York, and I remember, at that time I had like three super late models.
An Irish like a clover leaf in the Fighting Dillners,
I'm telling you, it was a stupid Legends car race. He's in the B main, but he's leading the B main. I'm like, my brother's going to qualify for the feature here at the summer shootout at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and he got put into the wall on the last lap. So we had this thing that was kind of handed down from my dad, is that when the guilty party came in the pits, we didn't do what most New Yorkers did, and that was flip people off. We just gave him the Dillner point. And when I pointed, he flipped me off. Well, it was like adrenaline. You hit that button and gone.
Right.
All of a sudden, I was on the roof of this Legends car, reaching inside, trying to grab the driver. He's driving through the pit area, and I got called to Humpy Wheeler's office the next week and got suspended.
Shockingly.
My son was running a Legends car there, and it was so funny that he had just left Road America. He's running a Continental Tire car there, had qualified on the pole, or qualified outside pole, and ran in the top 2 or 3 his entire stint. We left there, went right to Charlotte. He hopped in a Legends car for the first time ever and spun out 2 or 3 times, and they asked him on the radio to please leave the track. So you go from leading, in the biggest sports car series in the country to being asked to get off the track at Charlotte on this little bitty bull ring. But in the drivers' meeting, we were both laughing because at one point in the drivers' meeting, they tell all the drivers, and you are not allowed to flip off the flagman anymore. So
Wow.
we started laughing. It's just funny, the different forms of racing. You know?
It's pretty competitive, though, the Legend stuff there at Charlotte.
It is. I mean,
is that kind of where that was founded, if you will, right?
It was. It was definitely a dream for everybody from SMI and Humpy and everyone that started that. I personally, I hate Legends cars.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I hate Legends
cars. Well, you don't fit in one, dude. You
no,
look like a Herman
really
Munster with your head sticking out.
Yeah, actually, Mark Martin saw me drive one once, and he said, "You better stick to your day job." But they're so unlike anything you drive. I mean, and I think to some degree, it's really good to get some of that experience. But like Jeff Burton. He was talking about his son Harrison, and what should I do, Bob? Should I go dirt? Should I go pavement? Should I do the Legends car racing? And I really think that you get in a Legends car and you try it a couple times and you get an acclimation to racing and shifting and this and that. But the whole push to pass and the rough racing, it really, I think, has some bad tendencies for drivers. So get in, get out, move to something else. And that's what he did with Harrison, moving him to pro late models and super late models at 12 years old.
Wow.
So I didn't even think about racing a car until I was 18,
Right.
We figured out pretty quickly that we were not part of the good old boys club when we got down there. And this was a guy had put him in the car for whatever. It's like a huge race at the end of the year. I feel like $1 million race.
They had the Legends Million at the time. Yeah.
So needless to say, everybody is going there. And he put Robert in the car to try and qualify for the show. But what we figured out was they called them practice sessions. First practice session, second practice session. But then they lined the cars up based on the speeds from the practice sessions that were really qualifying sessions is what they were. It ended up being a fast group, and the B main is really what it ended up being. But we learned pretty quickly that the fastest lap times of the day would be run in the first session, which was during the hottest part of the day, including the race. And they did that because that gave them the best starting spot. So they knew the tricks that we didn't know. Like I say, part of the good old boys club. Were they cooking tires? I'm not going to say who knows what they were doing, but those cars were pretty fast on a very hot racetrack. I can tell you that.
Listen, soaking tires is part of the game of Legends car racing.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I've done it in super late models too. But, we used to, even my daughter's Bandolero, okay, a Bandolero car. You're always looking for the edge. And she wasn't great in a Bandolero. She got better with bigger cars. But, we would take different soaks and, put them in the valve stem and, put it on the rotisserie and then, ooh, it really smells. If you smell it, you're going to, so we'd put like ground up peppermint in there, and the peppermint with the soak would kind of combine. It would actually smell like a tire. So you learn certain things that you could do.
Trade secrets here.
Yeah.
You can't always get the dirt from a racer, but when you bring a broadcaster on who's no longer racing, well, he can certainly talk about what he did in the past. So we'll have some more from Bob Dilner in just a moment. Stay with us. This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Dream Giveaway. Dream Giveaway has been giving away high-end American muscle cars to raise money for charity since 2007. Dream Giveaway is known for giving away classic and new muscle and paying the federal taxes so the winners don't have to. For $25, you can jump in the game, and part of that goes to charity. You'll have a chance at winning some of the coolest cars on the planet. Check it out at dreamgiveaway.com. Welcome back to The Skinny. We have our colleague with us, Bob Dilner, has joined us. Actually has moved to the north side of Indianapolis, so here full-time now. Made it very easy to get him down here. Rico Elmore has joined me here once again inside of the studio, and great to have you with us, man. Talk to me about the progression. Maybe the fans don't know that you're no longer part of Speed 51, certainly associated with that for many, many years and did such great work there. But you've moved to Indianapolis now and full-time at Lucas Oil Productions. in association with MAV TV.
Yeah, so it's definitely a big change for me. Worked with Speed Channel and back in the day, TNN, moved to Speed and Fox, and that went by the wayside after the 2014 season, and I thought my career was done, honestly. And I got a call and started working with the folks from Lucas and MAV TV, and we've now been part of that. You've been part of that family for a real long time. I've now been for 8 years, and all the while, started Speed 51 back in 2001. And grew that to become the biggest short track site in the country, and had a lot of fun with that. Really helped build events, build some careers, work with some great people. And the RTA organization came along, and they acquired it, a couple of years ago. And, they have definitely good visions for that. But at the same time, I felt like I needed a new chapter in my life, and had been working with this organization, MAV TV and Lucas Oil, for a long time. So had that opportunity to move up here. My wife is from Northeast Indiana, so we kind of came back home a little bit for her. For me, it's like, going back to New York. It's like the winters are cold. So
well, that's what I was getting ready to say. You're in luck with your wife being from around here, you know, to get that pass to come back.
I haven't put snow tires on a vehicle in like 20 years, and I just bought snow tires for my wife's Telluride yesterday.
Right,
so
right.
It's a new world, but I like challenges, and I think the vision of what Forrest and Morgan and everybody wants to do with MAV TV, and there is really good. There is a void, I believe, after Speed Channel went away, became FS1, understood why Fox did it. They were very strategic in their business affairs, and it worked out for them. But at the same time, when Speed went away, man, it was tough. For you and me as racing fans, it was like, wow, where do we get our stuff?
Yep.
And MAV TV was there, and they continued to grow. And now this year, we're really focusing solely on MAV TV and American motorsports. I know we have a lot of international shows on there too. They're cool, but we're really looking at some of the American motorsports, the motorsports we have and the motorsports we don't have yet, and looking at that and saying, hey, how can we grow that? Grow it for the players that are involved, but grow the network as well, and maybe recapture some of the fancy that the old Speed Channel had.
And I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, I remember when, I've, of course, have been a part of the Lucas family for many, many years, and honored to be that. I don't know that I've had anybody yell at me quite like Forrest, but I deserved every bit of it when I started, Fatheads, our business, and he had a vision for what he wanted to do there, and I think it got a little derailed in the beginning in getting there. Which, listen, it's all about timing, no matter what. If it went exactly as planned right out of the gate, it's like Forrest told me one time. He's told me many things, but one of the things he told me was, "I'll show you somebody that made their money fast and easy because they won't have it." So if you make a great network fast and easy, then you know what, you don't appreciate it, is what he was getting at.
It's kind of cool, and I think you hit on a lot of cool points from the standpoint of, we're not spring chickens, okay? We ain't old, but we ain't spring chickens. And back in the day, I used to wait for Speedway Illustrated and Speed Sport News to come to my mailbox, on that Thursday, Friday, whenever it wound up, to find out who did what the week before.
Yep.
And now everything's changed, with social media, with streaming, this and that, and it's a balance, and it's hard to figure out what that balance should be. But I think the one cool thing about MAV TV is that while streaming is awesome, and I think it's a viable means to entertain people and also inform them, I think that, that linear television is still super important, especially from an advertising perspective, because you get all the streaming side of things, and to some degree that's a younger generation, but that live TV, nothing can replace that, because that is, the kingpin of what made motorsports.
Right, and I mean, that's the same thing with the magazine, right? I mean, like what we talked about was, geez, who does magazines anymore? And Ken, of course, definitely encouraged me. maybe
I
not.
subscribe to that thought process.
Maybe not to do it, but
I mean, the rumor mill is, print was dead. It was going away. But as it turns out, because it went so dead, it actually has a bit of a surge where, people still want to hold. I know my wife, she doesn't want to read something electronically. She still wants to hold a paper book, when she reads a book. There's just something to that. And the photography, which Evan Smith does a fabulous job in our magazine, but the photography just captures you, and it captures that moment. And, you can just sit and look at a really cool picture for a few minutes and analyze everything that was going on there. So it for sure has its place.
It does. It's difficult right now because everybody's still trying to figure it out. What's going to happen with these apps? Who's going to buy what? Heck, I was a cord cutter, right? And I went to just everything based off the internet and apps and so forth. That's what we're used to now in our home. But at the same time, it's just kind of evolved where everybody has a Hulu or a YouTube TV or something like that, and you're basically back at the same price point of where you were,
right?
Yeah. So it's just weird, and it's weird on how the racing industry has evolved. It's definitely been good, I believe, for the racetracks through rights acquisition fees. It's not like it was when I began Speed 51. Listen, if the rights acquisition fees were, then what they are now, I would have never been able to build Speed 51. We built it on, hey, join me, I'll help build up your event, and therefore we're going to have some rights to what you do.
Right, and I remember that,
Yeah.
which I thought was a genius idea, too, when you did that.
And now it's changed to, hey, you got $200,000, you got $1 million, what do you have? And I can give you what we have. And it's definitely changed the game a little bit. And both, I think, all aspects are still needed. But like you said, everything has evolved, and this age, I think, is going to be defined in terms of the racing television media industry within the next 3 years or so.
We're going to take a quick break here. We're going to dig into some of the behind-the-scenes stuff when it comes to television. Bob is up to speed on all that, and there's a lot of questions that we typically get asked from fans that maybe we can address some of that stuff here and help make the picture a little bit clearer because it can be pretty complicated. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This segment of The Skinny has been brought to you by General Tire. It's more than just a slogan. Anywhere is possible with General Tire. General Tire's Grabber X3 Mud Terrain tire offers aggressive styling and is engineered for durability with innovative performance features that are ready to carry you through extreme mud, dirt, and rock-covered terrain. For extreme traction that's ready for anything and rugged styling to match, look no further than the Grabber X3. Make your anywhere possible by visiting GeneralTire.com today.
This segment of The Skinny is brought to you by Rhino Classifieds. Tired of all those ads and random stuff that shows up when you're looking to buy or sell your car parts? Rhino Classifieds was created just for you. Welcome to a streamlined buying and selling app created by racers for racers and race fans. Modified cars, classic cars, race cars, that special big block you need, the trailer to move your baby around the country in. We got you at rhino.co. Welcome back to The Skinny here once again. TV extraordinaire, broadcaster, and behind-the-scenes producer, Bob Dilner in the house with us, and he really has a lot of knowledge of what goes on behind the scenes. There's a lot of spokes in the wheel whenever it comes to television, and you work closely with the network, and the network has their items that they have to tackle. Production has their items they have to tackle. The promoter has their items they have to tackle. The racers are racing. I mean, there's a lot of spokes in that wheel that have to come together. The sponsors, of course, a massive part of that. So give us an idea of where this industry is going, because as we just talked about, I mean, this podcast, iHeartRadio is growing faster than they ever have before. A bunch of podcasts are out there, so they're commanding a little bit of airtime. We have the apps commanding some airtime. We have regular television commanding airtime. It's wild, wild west, if you will.
Yeah, it's mass chaos, honestly, and everybody is trying to steal an event from somebody else. And, other people are trying to start series and throwing money out there. And, you can throw money out there all you want, but are you going to stick? Are you going to have that, long-standing feel within the motorsports industry? So it's hard to shake everything down right now. But Rick Schwally, the series director for the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series, he and I were talking about that, and they just have a fantastic series, with what they do. It's definitely the leader in the dirt late model realm. Big money. I mean, huge. And next year is even bigger and better than ever.
Crazy.
But yet they have some people that go, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to cherry pick over here. I'm going to look for a big event over here. So what can you do to make things better? And I think, to some degree, some of these, startups, make things appear bigger than they are. And I think it's trying to make sure you have that full package. You have the races, you have the racers, you have the money. Okay. Then you concentrate on the show with the promoters. It's definitely, you're tap dancing all over the place, and social media is so important. You can make things look huge on social media when they're really not. How many times do people go, especially the younger generation, say, well, how many likes did my picture get? I say, who gives a junk,
Yeah, right.
But at the same time, that's kind of what makes the racing world go around right now is, oh, that went viral. Oh, did you see that? What's the latest content that we can put out? And I think to some degree, it's getting a little bit old school, for the Winchester 400. And for the last year and a half, I've promoted Winchester Speedway. I had a car that was stripped down, a lightweight front-wheel drive car, and took the engine, the drivetrain, all that sort of stuff out there. And if you remember back in the day, one of the pieces of video that really did well with Bob Jenkins, and Larry Newber, at Bristol, they rolled the car down the banking at Bristol to show the degree of banking. And they did that on television. I believe it was ESPN. Well, unfortunately, because of Mother Nature, we weren't able to do that Winchester 400 weekend, but still have the car sitting out there. We were going to do something like that and just put it up on social for people to see and go, hell, I got to go to this racetrack. I got to go to this race.
This thing must be way steep.
Yes, exactly.
Because you can tell them what degree, and it doesn't. Doesn't.
Oh, it's 37-degree banking.
Well, you ended up doing something in the winter. Didn't you slide down on the snow or something?
I did, and honestly, that started at like my kids wanted to go sledding, and there's really not a lot. The one complaint I do have is, being from North Carolina the last 20 years with a lot of mountains, there's not many mountains around this part of Indiana. Nope. So we said, you know what, let's just go out to the racetrack. And I think we had like maybe 18 inches of snow out there on the banking. And I'm like, oh, maybe it slid all down. I don't know. So we went out there and it's still there on the banking. So I took my son's little plastic sled, went up into the banking, and I said to my buddy Robbie, I'm like, hey, let's do a social piece on this and try to see what it does. And we should have tried it before we did it, because if we made the run already, it would have been fine. But the problem is it was that fresh powdered snow. Wow. So 3/4 of the way down the 37-degree banking, I crashed. So, but it made for good social.
I was getting ready to say that was probably pretty good though too.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's the whole thing's an evolution, even the race promotion side of things. I think everything got backgate driven. And promoters and series and so forth started looking at things totally the opposite way than, some of the promoters that I looked up to growing up did, and some of the promoters, especially around the old open wheel ranks, you read Dave Argabright and Chris Economaki's book and you hear about some of the stories there. And, sometimes, it wasn't completely factual, but it got people to the racetrack, and I think we need a little bit more of that. We need less professionalism to some degree and a little bit more flair. And I think we've lost a little bit of that right now.
Talk to me about the network side of things that people don't understand as well. They work off of a different set of numbers. They call them universe. So there's a certain number of viewers in that network's universe. So MAV TV will would naturally compete, let's say, with a CBS Sports Network or an NBC Sports Network, which my understanding is that platform is going to be completely different or going away. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to be housed underneath, Peacock.
Peacock,
now.
yeah.
And, some of the programming is going to USA and so forth, and some of it is just going to be streaming. So you talk about, a change in the scope of things. You're basically getting rid of a network on NBCSN, that's on most satellite and cable providers, and really forcing the streaming side of things. They're definitely taking a chance there. But I still think it's really difficult to base everything right now for the next couple of years as this evolves. I think you need to wait and see where the players shake out. And, listen, Forrest and Morgan and everybody, they're committed to American motorsports. I don't see anybody else out there within this scope that we love so much that are dedicated like that.
Right.
So, we honestly owe them a debt of gratitude, but I'm also really intrigued to be part of the process because there's a lot of different players, but to see where it's going to get, because I think we have the opportunity to do something really big within motorsports.
Yeah, I mean, going back 20 years, and we've said this on this show, I'm sure you've heard it somewhere along the way. I mean, I'm just hard-pressed to think of a company that's done more for grassroots motorsports in the past 20 years than Lucas Oil Products has done for this industry. And granted, they used that industry to help build their business, but they have stuck with that format throughout, and they've never faltered. And nor are they faltering now. And again, they're following along the same lines with their network.
Yeah, you look at Lucas Oil Stadium where the Colts play, all right? I was with Forrest this past weekend, and he's so proud of that plaza, and he should be. I'm proud of it, not only because of my association with the company, but because, by golly, take a look at the cars. Right. You got Earl Pearson Jr.'s late model. You got Renna Zetter's, off-road truck. You got Bobby Gerhardt's ARCA car. You got, PPL machines and sprint cars.
The two fuel
and
cars.
That is really showing people what motorsports is all about, and you're doing it on a different stage, a different platform to where you normally would find out that information. So that's really cool. I mean, listen, he doesn't have to do this.
That engine that's on the
that
wires,
exploded version of the Hemi. I mean, oh my goodness, unbelievable.
He told me the whole story. I mean, I've got a great Forrest story about when the stadium was almost, they were getting right open, and he. I either called him or he called me, and I said, "What are you up to?" He goes, "Oh, I'm down at the stadium." And I said, "Awesome." Well, he goes, "Why don't you come down here and check it out?" Now there hasn't been one fan in this place, so now I'm getting the VIP tour by Forrest, which there's no other tour like that other than him explaining everything. Yes. It's like him at the cattle ranch going through, telling you about what this is and what that is, and your head's just spinning like I'm lost. But
he's absolutely a brilliant man.
I mean, yeah, but that's another story in itself with noticing sick cattle, or if there isn't one in one place. I'm like,
and every different kind of tree on the planet.
Oh yeah,
different mushrooms planted. There's not much he doesn't know. But so back to the stadium.
So he says, come down, and he's standing there. We're up to the suite, and he's showing me the bar, and it's very cool, very very cool. And he says he's just standing there looking at something, and he shows it to me, and he says, "You believe this?" And he shows me the piece of paper. It's how much they charge you for a 6-pack of Cokes. And I go, "You're right." And I mean, but that's him. Although he spends the money to promote these things, he is a very frugal man and watches every step of the way. And that's what's made him unbelievably successful, and the company, and Morgan carrying it on the way Morgan's doing things. I text Morgan as soon as it was announced, and I just told him, I said, "I'm proud of you, dude." And I mean, Morgan's younger than I am, but there were very few people that got invited to the wedding that got to go back to the house after the wedding, and I was blessed to be one of them, and many other great experiences with that family, and it was just it's just awesome to see, because I think there was a level of uncertainty at one point, kind of how it was going to move, and this was way back, so not anytime soon. But, what was the next steps with the company, and Morgan with Katie, and Katie's mindset. And I mean, it's just, they've put together a super team. And you coming in, I was like, well, what happened to Speed 51? I mean, like, I was, of course, completely confused. And I kind of knew a little bit that you were doing some stuff, kind of in the background and doing some other things. But it, definitely a huge part that will help build. I mean, you've built it from the ground up before, okay? They're not on the ground by any stretch. But you've built it from the ground up. You know what people are wanting to watch, what people are wanting to see. And listen, I mean, why did SRX do so well? SRX did so well because Tony and them put together a Saturday night racing. It was great racing. It was, you were in, you were out. You could sit there for, whatever it was, 90 minutes or 60 minutes, whatever it was. And you got it. And you got to see good racing. And you were talking about the Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series. Listen, they've been going back and forth with the World of Outlaws forever. World of Outlaws, great series, good group, have had their handful of challenges along the way, like most of us in business. But at the end of the day, if you want the Outlaw, the wing sprints to come, you're going to have to take one of these shows. Well, Lucas doesn't have that luxury. We've got a great product, and I don't know how it is now. I just kind of know from back in the past that's how a lot of that worked. But, the great part of it is Lucas says, this is the product we have. We're going to bring these racers, and this is going to be a good show. And it is a good show. So that's the cool, a nice part of it. You got some good material.
And what I like, honestly, is the fact that, Morgan's doing a great job, and Katie is just so smart in everything that she does. But Forrest is still involved. He'll pop in at meetings and, what do you got this week? And we'll tell him we got this and that. And he's as attracted to the smaller stuff as he is to the big stuff. Like a couple weeks ago, he was like, what do you got this week? And we went through ARCA and late model, and you got OTE, Lucas Oil, On the Edge. And he's like, oh, where's On the Edge? And Jamaica, Virginia Motor Speedway, we got Mudbox. Oh, I love Mudbox.
OTE's a huge deal to him, man.
Yes.
Always has been.
Yeah. So, Ken, you were involved with that from the beginning. And
I voiceovered some of the numbers on that way back.
It's really neat to see how everything has progressed, and to get a broader scope of things that we're doing, and honestly the people involved and so forth as well. So I'm just really amped up for it. I love the future, and I know sometimes that might be boring talk, but when we talk about Forrest, that passion for the whole company, including the motorsports realm, is key to that success.
Hey man, we want to thank you for taking the time to come down here and take a look at the studio.
And real quick, it can't be done without Jen.
Oh,
she's been around a long time, and I have given her more headaches.
Well, he mentioned On the Edge, so that show was created by Steve Grind, myself, and Jen was part of that process.
Right,
so,
I remember.
So those three people created that show, and it did so well. Whenever we initially went out to Corona and met with Forrest and Bob Pattison at the time, and they said they wanted to be title sponsor for it, and it was going on Speed. And I remember in subsequent years after that, and at the time, that's what Forrest wanted his Saturday night short track racing. He wanted it to go back to when he was a kid, watch figure eight racing, trailer racing, those gimmick races that are so much fun. There's no thinking. You just sit there and you enjoy yourself, And he
the trailer racing where you're like, there's no way he can make another lap.
Right, yeah.
This guy's dragging it around on the axles,
he wanted to
trying
bring
to get
that
it
back.
done.
And I heard the guys in at the Cup races on a Saturday night would be standing there watching. It was a quick 30-minute show, so they would be standing there watching it, and we would lead into some big races. Well, there was no shortage of months and weeks where we were top 5 on the network in terms of rating. And there was one time, I think we were second or third in the ratings. I mean, the thing absolutely killed it, and it was cool to be part of it.
And that is what's really neat. I mean, we could sit here and talk, on and on about a bunch of different things, but watching some of those Cup people, all right, when you went in the garage area and they said, "Oh man, that Lucas Oil late model dirt series, that is cool." How about Davenport? He's having a heck of a year. Or they see the on the edge stuff from Anderson or Rockford or whatever. Oh my gosh, the carnage from that. Those guys, the Kevin Harvicks, the Jimmy Johnsons of the world, were watching that stuff. And that's when you knew, man, this is pretty cool. Yeah. And you mentioned Jan. I mean, she is so sharp. Yeah. She's on point. She knows what she's doing. She's got a great vision, and I work with her every single day. So she's one of those, she's one of our leaders for sure. But I really believe what she does in the motorsports industry, honestly, she's one of those visionaries in regards to what she's been able to do from where she's come, from you guys working back together back in the day.
She's my little sister. We piss and moan and groan at each other like brother and sister. We've been working together for near 20 years. But
she would be at an event, and I would totally not be any help.
Well,
because we would usually be partying, and they're trying to work a show, and
she would make us toe the line. I mean, there was just never a time she knew what she wanted from the show, or if we said something wrong or made a mistake, boom, stop, do it again, and she cared about the show, which demanded immediate respect from us. It's like she cares. She's part of the people that really care and want this to be a good product, and so I've always really respected her for that. And you're right. I mean, she's extremely switched on. So. She's a great addition to the team, and I've been with her for many, many years, so it's been a good run for sure.
Hey, this was a lot of fun here today. I mean, we didn't even get to the stories of me getting, my credentials and my suspended from NASCAR and stuff, so I appreciate it. See?
Right? We could have gone down that road, and we would all love to hear the story, so you'll have to be back. We didn't even ask you what your ugliest car was or what you dipped chicken nuggets in or any of that stuff either, so there's a lot of stuff there. And that's what happens. It goes by so quickly. Yeah. So Michael's been yelling at me for 10 minutes to close the show up, so it's all good. But thanks for taking the time, man. I know you're just a little bit north, but I also know how busy you are, so it's cool for you to come down here, take a look at the studio, and sit down and have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun to just chat, because so many times there's interviews and what we do, and you guys have a really cool thing going with a lot of the guests that you've had on here, so I'm definitely a big fan of the Skinny.
So now you know a little bit of behind-the-scenes stuff on Bob Dillner. You see him on camera every now and again, but know that he is heavily involved behind the camera as well. Hope you learned a little something here, and now you know the Skinny on Mr. Bob Dillner. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being with us here on The Skinny. This episode has been brought to you by Toyota, Rhino Classifieds, Dream Giveaway, and General Tire. For the latest in sunglasses, optical frames, accessories, and apparel, be sure to check out fatheads.com. That's Fatheads with a Z. Production facilities provided by Fatheads Eyewear Studios. All rights reserved.